Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, and this is called monkey games. Okay, and monkey games are it's my fun little terminology for how a lot of social games that we play, whether it's talking to women and attracting women, or conversations between friends, or power dynamics in professional environments, anything that has to do with socializing, it is the primal aspect of that game that's being played, right? So I just want to make it clear, I'm not reducing all social interactions to just being a primal game for dominance, okay? But what I am saying is that however much you think there is a primal game for dominance going on when you're talking to a friend or hanging out with a girl or whatever, it's probably more than you initially thought, right? Because there's obviously much more than just if everything was a primal game for dominance, we'd all be bashing each other's skull in, and we wouldn't have values like kindness and empathy and generosity and understanding, and we wouldn't really be communicating that much, right? I understand there's a lot more than just a primal game going on, but even in a society, especially right now, where we, kind of see ourselves as a bit more civilized than a lot of periods of history, and I would agree with you that probably we're more civilized than a lot of periods of history. But even then, when we are, just buddies hanging out in a room, or, there's 5 guys and 3 girls all talking to each other, there is still going to be a sublayer of dominance being jockeyed for between everyone. And it's not going to play out in always such an overt way, right? And in fact, a lot of times it's happening on a very subtle level, and so you might not even notice that it's happening, and you might be in denial of it because it can seem like, oh, well, I'm not like that, right? Like someone might watch this right now and they already disagree with me. They're like, well, I'm not like that. I'm an intellectual. I'm very smart. I'm not driven by primal needs. Well, I mean, you are driven by primal needs. It's just to what degree you're going to admit it. I mean, like, you have to eat, right? You literally have to put things in your mouth and like consume them to not die. Same with water, right? That's a primal need. It's not something that's happening on some intellectual, academic, civilized level. Like, it's very simple. You need to consume the flesh of other beings, or, grains, or fruits or vegetables, right? Okay, that could be considered primal. But you might think, okay, well, I'm not driven by, so much primality. Well, okay, anyone who's ever watched porn, I mean, you already failed that test. It's like, okay, well, I wanted to gratify myself on a sexual level, so I decided to watch 2 monkeys fucking each other, 2 people, right? Like, this video, for you to fully understand it, you're gonna have to have a decent level of honesty with yourself and willingness to admit that you're probably more of a monkey than you think you are, right? You're not just a monkey. Like I said, I'm not giving a reductionist argument, but you're more of a monkey than you think, right? Because sexual gratification is not a survival mechanism, right? But it is also not something intellectual, right? So it's not quite like the need to eat food, right? It's not that basic of a need, but it's also, you can't qualify it as some sort of like, oh, my thirst for knowledge, so I desire to read books and learn new things. Like, it's definitely not that far in, like, being a human, a civilized human. It's somewhere in here, right? But probably more on the primal side of things, okay? And then once we understand that, we kind of accept that, okay, maybe I can follow, your point a bit, but then you're like, okay, where's this going? All right, well, fine. We're monkeys. We're trying to fuck each other. We're getting sexual gratification. It's a primal desire, and we give into it, and it's very strong, right? What's the point? Well, the point is that if you want to be successful in this realm, right, you want to have, and I mean this in even like the civilized sense, like you want to have a nice family with a wife who loves you, and a strong, supportive family that all, they all love each other, right? Things that are far above the primality of, bending someone over and fucking them. You need to learn how to play these games. If you want to have good relationships with your friends and your family and your coworkers, and your children, you need to learn how these games work. Like this, I think that these monkey games, these primal games for dominance, they underlie so much of what we do, far more than you can imagine. Like I had a client who I recently explained this to, and at first he was like, okay, this is really interesting. Like, it's starting to make a lot of sense of why, my relationship with my girlfriend is maybe not going as, as well as I'd like, or, blah, 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 blah. And then he met with a different client of mine. I'm kind of doing coaching for a friend group. They referred each other, they referred their friends to me. Fucking English, Hector. After doing coaching with me, I had this one friend be like, hey, you should coach with this guy. And then this guy recommended me to two of his friends. And so I had a session with one guy, and he's like, oh yeah, you had your session with this other guy a couple days ago, and he said it was really amazing, right? It was really, really good. Then after that, a day later, that guy who we talked about sent me another message. He's like, hey man, I've been really thinking about this session that I had with you and learning these monkey games concepts, and it's blowing my mind. Like, I'm really starting to see how all these dots are connecting, and that underlying it was this primal dominance thing, right? The way I was talking about it with him is having boundaries, standing up for yourself, and in a relationship, telling a girlfriend like, hey, I don't appreciate that behavior, but not just having boundaries, but the way you say them. Right. So there's a difference between saying like, hey, I didn't really appreciate you said it like that, or you said that, or you were late, or whatever you have a problem with. You could say it that way, or you can say, I didn't really appreciate that. Please don't do that again. The second one is a lot more firm. You're not like, oh, but don't do that. Right. I'm kind of having fun with the name monkey games, right? But the conviction that you said it the second way, hey, I didn't like that, please don't do it again, is a lot stronger than, hey, could you not do that? Like, it's a stronger statement. And the reason that sometimes you have to perform your ideas, because you're communicating an idea, right? And on an intellectual level, they're both the same idea, but not really, because when you express the second way, you're saying more than just, hey, I didn't appreciate it. There's some kind of underlying, not necessarily a threat, right? But there's an underlying, I didn't like that. And it's kind of like you basically said, hey, I didn't like that. And you shouldn't treat me that way. Not only because it's bad, but because I'm a strong person and fucking with me is not a good idea. And not even as a threat necessarily. It can be interpreted that way, right? But not even just as like I'm going to bash your skull in if you're late again. Like, that's not what we're saying. What we're kind of saying is like, through the primal communicative tool of tonality, right? Just a slight change in tone. I'm telling you shouldn't do something. And just by the fact that I said it with that tone, I said it with my chest, I said it with that level of confidence, it's almost like it's more true. It's a little bit hard for me to describe, but it's almost like because it was said with so much conviction, it comes off more true. That's why when you watch like debates between politicians or, people on, YouTube arguing, a lot of times people will take the side of the person who was just better at expressing themselves because it communicated to them on a deep primal level. They felt a connection with it. They were like, oh, it's almost like because he said it with that octave and that, not stuttering and with that level of eloquence and clarity or even simplicity, I felt it. Like I felt it in my dick. Like, and it's so because I felt it more, it's more true. Even if it's not technically more true, it feels more true. And a lot of people are more susceptible to this, you almost call it propaganda, than you might even be aware of it. Like if you're talking to someone and they say it with like conviction, you're going to believe them a bit more. Even if you don't agree with it, you're going to be like, oh, wow, he said it with a lot of. Now, afterwards, you might go back and be like, oh, yeah, what he said was really fucking stupid. But in the moment, you were caught up in the monkey games. You were caught up in the primal battle for dominance, right? And again, it doesn't just mean primal like this person's going to bash my skull in. That can be one aspect of it, right? But what I'm explaining as monkey games obviously goes a lot further than just the level of monkey, because I guess if you really are talking monkey games, it is literally just like who can kill who and who can fuck who, right? But I'm interested in power as on all levels, right? In truth, on all levels. But for the simplicity of just explaining things, let's keep it to just monkey games, right? Because specifically when it comes to sexual relationships, romantic relationships with women, this is a huge deal because sexual attraction is very primal. Now, it's not so primal that only big, strong men are getting laid, because clearly that's not true. It is an attractive quality. So that's true. Like whoever you are, if you were also 6'5" and, a hulking figure, probably more often than not, you'll have better results. And I'm 5'8", and I'll just say that. If I was 6'5", I would be even better probably in most cases. So yes, is being big and strong an advantage? Duh. Right? But clearly it's not the only thing going on, because if that were the case, then no one, who's smaller than average would be getting really good results with girls. But hey, I'm 5'8". I mean, some people say that's like just above manlet, but whatever. Right? I know guys who are my height, a little bit shorter, or just only slightly taller, and they get far more results than guys who are much bigger and much stronger, right? So it's not just primal attractive traits that determine who has sex with who. However, because of how the world works, and we've proven this because we're not the most physically dangerous species, but we're the alpha predators, apex predators on Earth, right? Like nothing comes even close to us. I mean, we obliterate anything on Earth with ease, right? But we don't have the biggest claws. We don't have, we're really struggling in the physical department in a lot of places. But we're the top dog. So you can use non-primal means to win the primal monkey games, right? But at the end of the day, if you're not following along with me, big, strong guy is initially attractive to the girl, and so he attracts her on a primal level. But then really witty, cool guy with strong presence eventually overcomes this guy because he's better at conversation and he doesn't get intimidated by this guy's size, right? So the initial aura of his and presence, dangerous presence that him being big and strong initially presents doesn't intimidate this guy, which is actually really fucking, it's like a sign. It's like, okay, this guy should be intimidated by this guy, but he's not. So does that mean this guy has a gun? Like why is he so confident, right? The fact that he's not even a little bit intimidated. And not only is he not intimidated, he's more confident in this guy, and he expresses himself in even more interesting a manner, and he's more kind of more sexy, and he has a more sexual energy. Like this guy technically should be the alpha male in the room, but this guy actually is more dominant, in his behavior and is more free and open and calm and collected. And if, he's interested in this girl and he gives her a direct compliment and he says she's really sexy, whereas this guy is actually kind of nervous. So even though he should be the top dog, he's not expressing himself like this guy is, right? So this guy ends up getting his dick sucked by the girl later. So he used more than just, I'm big, strong man who could win the fight. But at the end of the day, they're in bed and he's bending her over and fucking her like a monkey. So like the final product, right, is a very animalistic act, right? And honestly, in bed, you should be really animalistic. This is where I think that you should let the animal loose. You should be grunting, you should be growling. Now you're probably like, you immediately got an image in your mind and someone's probably like, this sounds retarded. I'm not saying you go, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, right? But you should probably do more of that than you think you should. And I've given this advice to guys and they've come back and told me that I was right 100%. So we're not just monkeys. We obviously have a little bit more going on than monkeys. And our seduction rituals clearly show we have more going on, right? Because if you look in nature, it usually is the biggest monkey who wins, or the biggest rhinoceros, or the biggest shark. Here we have some other means, some other types of weapons that we can use, just like in how we conquer the earth, right? But at the end of the day, there is that layer of primal battle for dominance going on. So when we walk into a room and we don't seem intimidated, we are attractive on a human level of like, this guy is very composed and he seems well-mannered and this and that. But there then is also a lower level of attraction going on that is primal. And if you only do this, you're going to struggle with dating, but also relationships. Like I said, this applies to much more than just, sexual relationships. I mean, this has to do with everything, right? If you have a friend and he's like consistently late to everything, and I'm saying this as the guy who's always fucking late, but I take accountability for it. And even if people don't check me, I always tell them, hey man, I'm sorry I was late. I'm awful at it. I'm doing my best. But no, it's just a bad habit of mine. But let's say you fucking hate people being late and someone is late. You're not going to like lose your shit and be like, get on your fucking knees and bow down to me and apologize, right? But there's a part of you that might go, okay, hey, I just watched this YouTube video. This guy was explaining how everything has an element of monkey games to it. And there's this friend who's always fucking late to everything. And I've told him before, but he never really seems to like get it or respect me, right? And it's getting really fucking annoying. So what you can do is go, okay, how do I play monkey games? How do I use this concept to my advantage in this simple scenario of like me being tired of a friend being late all the time? Well, the next time you say, like with the two examples I gave, right? Like, hey, I didn't appreciate you said that. And you say it with your chest. Do it with some level of like, some level of, which could be the language that you choose, the tonality, the body language, the facial expressions, right? So if you take it to the extreme, this is the extreme. I'm not saying you do this, but you would look him in the face and grab him by the collar and be like, listen, motherfucker, don't you ever be fucking late again, right? And you just spit, right? I just spit everywhere. I don't know if you saw it, but you spit in his face and you tell him if he ever is late again, you're going to beat the shit out of him, right? That's like the extreme version, right? So how do we take that concept and just make it like not retarded, right? Well, you look at him and you say, hey, Clark. I don't know who the fuck his name is, right? It's Clark. Sounds like a douche, right? Hey, Clark, man, can I just talk to you for a second? Look, you know I hate when people are late. I'm very punctual. I'm always on time when you need me to be somewhere, but you were late as fuck all the time. And we've talked about it before, and you said you were sorry, but like you keep doing it. And it's really getting on my fucking nerves. And I would really appreciate it if you can fix it. Do you think you could do that? See, I included questions, which are not like the most dominant way to express things, right? You're not just saying, you will never be late again. like you tell him it's never going to happen again, right? So you can be diplomatic and cool about it, right? But you could tell with my tone and with my cursing, like saying fuck and just like explaining to him, hey, you've continuously, broken this. So, broken your promise, basically, not to be late anymore. So there's the human element of grace and finesse, right? But you're still adding that flavor of primal fucking stop it, right? Like parents with their kids. Very authoritative tones. Stop it, right? And you smack them upside the head. They get that communication, right? And with animals, we have to be physical because they literally don't even speak our language, right? So a cat or a dog fucking up, you sometimes have to hit them a little bit because you have to communicate to them on a level that they understand. Well, people are like that as well. You can talk to everyone on the human level. I'm not advocating at all you go around smacking people, okay? Keep your hands to yourself. What I'm advocating is that you smack them with your words sometimes. Like, if you say things with your chest, if you say things with confidence, if you sometimes beat your chest a bit, people are going to get the message because you are communicating to them in multiple languages, not just English, but monkey. You have to speak to people in monkey because most people have a monkey inside of them. Part human, part monkey, part God. I would say that's what people's identities. Or I like to say humans are half God, half animal, right? We have these like higher values going on, but then we have all these like primal things also going on. And then we're kind of like, split in half. Some people are definitely more monkey than God, and vice versa. Some people are really just amazing human beings, right? And so you have to be aware of who in your life is what percent what, right? And you yourself, like you're probably a lot more of a monkey than you would like to admit, right? Because like, I don't know, sex is super fucking animalistic, right? And your need for sex, I mean, you've sat in front of a computer and watched two people fucking jerked off to it. Like, I know it sounds fucking lame, but you did it. We've all done it, right? So if you come to accept that nature and then adapt to it, I mean, you can start to profit. A lot of your relationships will take they'll get fucking better. They'll just get better. And especially when it comes to women. Because here's the thing about sex, because it is a primal act in the end, right? Like I said, at the end of the day, the small guy beats the big guy, but then he's doing the monkey act at the end. There are elements, like I was kind of translating the little guy beating the big guy. Like, even though the big guy is technically stronger and could beat this shit out of the smaller guy is actually kind of demonstrating more power because he doesn't seem as nervous. He's more direct about his sexual intentions, right? Like, he's willing to walk up and say, hey, you're really cute. Like, that willingness to express your interest takes a lot of balls, right? Not only to do it, but to do it in a cool way. Because you could be like, hey, I think you're really pretty, right? Low monkey power. Damn, you got a fat ass. I want to stick my dick inside of you. High monkey power. Now, you probably don't want to do that in like 99% of circumstances, right? However, I have tested all of this because I'm fucking insane. Like, I've been, especially in college, that's where I was like learning a lot of social skills because I was a fucking retard, right? So I would literally be in groups of people and like just say shit like that. Be like, you're really fucking hot. I'd love to fuck you. And I literally would say things like that. Why? Because I wanted to test it. I'd be like, is this like acceptable? Like, can I get away with this? Right? Like, this is not normal. No one else was doing this, right? But I would see some guys kind of like do things similar. Like, they'd be more touchy with girls and a little bit more assertive. But then I was like, okay, well, can I just like say these things even more directly? Right? Not beat around the bush. I want to just go straight for the bush. Ha ha ha. Um, and sometimes, yeah, you would get the reaction that you expect. The girl would be like, "What the fuck did he just say?" And everyone looks at me like I'm a fucking weirdo. Like I've definitely like put my foot in my mouth more times than you would think. However, I was also totally fucking surprised sometimes. Like I would say something like that, and you would think, "Oh my god, this guy is an autistic retard." But no, I would say it like that, and I'd say it with my chest, and the girl, you could tell she actually liked it. Or like people would laugh, but not in like, oh my god, this is so uncomfortable. The only thing I can do is laugh. Like genuinely thought like that was like funny, but in a cool way. And the girl would giggle and she would look at me like she was actually interested in possibly, negotiating this. And I'm like, okay, well, if I can be this direct in this situation, well, how far does this extend? Right? Like how is this game of sex and romance being played, and on what levels is it being played, and how much of it is determined by this monkey stuff, right? So like you're in a social environment and talking to this guy, and this guy's also likes the girl, and so he starts to like try and take up more space, right? Or he tries to, he puts his hand on your shoulder, right? In most cases, he's not going to like bash your skull in and then like drag her away and fuck her in the room. But he is somewhat implying, hey, when someone's trying to dominate you with their body language, right? They put their arm over you, right? They're trying to make you small. So a monkey game is being played, right? So it's almost like what you can do is when you recognize things, you can go, oh, is this a monkey game? And just continue to recognize them. Because once you recognize them, then you go, oh, I need to play monkey games. Because here's the thing about monkey games. You can't not play them most of the time. Like you kind of just have to play them. And this made me supremely uncomfortable because I didn't want to be this person. I was like probably a lot of people. Why can't we just all fucking get along? Why can't we just be nice? Like, why can't, let me have a nice conversation with this girl and get to know her. And if we have a connection or are attracted to each other, we'll go, off. If not, okay, whatever. And then this guy will get his shot, his 5 minutes, and da-da-da-da-da. But that's not how the fucking world works, my man. And this was a rude awakening for me, that people are going to play monkey games with you, especially in mixed environments, like, boys and girls together in a room, and even if they're not all single, like, people who don't give a shit, right? And so you need to learn how to play the game. So the guy puts his arm on your shoulder. It's monkey game time, right? And let's say he's bigger than you, right? If you allow him to get away with it, right, without any punishments, this is not saying you need to punch him in the face. Like, Hector told me this is a monkey game, dude, right? Like I gotta be dominant over you and just deck the motherfucker. No, right? But he does it, and you go, okay, monkey game time. So what's the right move here? Now, I've tested this, right? I've tested everything from like, hey man, don't touch me. Okay, well that's fucking extreme, right? Because then what that does is it makes the monkey games too obvious, right? And it also can potentially make you seem threatened, right? Because if you really are the top monkey, you wouldn't be threatened by monkey games, right? Because if you go, hey man, don't touch me, he's probably gonna be like, whoa man, I was, like, he'll deny it. Like, oh, huge thing. Don't ever expect anyone to admit that this is what's going on. Like, you're probably having enough trouble accepting this, and you're maybe open to what I'm talking about. Most people, you really think he's gonna go, oh yeah, I'm sorry man, I was totally doing that as a tool to like make you look small in front of this girl so I could look like the big monkey and have her suck my monkey dick, right? Like, no, he doesn't give a fuck, bro. Like, most people are monkeys. Like, I'm just gonna be straight with you. Like, a lot of people out there are straight fucking monkeys, and they are going to be driven by primal desires. They're gonna not be limited by morality, or only a little bit limited by it. Yeah, I would put very, very little hope and faith in the average person that you are dealing with until they prove otherwise. Okay, and I say this as a very idealistic, caring person. Doesn't mean I don't care about people, right? So if I'm saying people will play monkey games and fuck you over just so that they could get a little bit of, a moment of glory or a moment of feeling like the biggest monkey in the room, even though I'm saying that, it's just because it's a pattern I've seen. It's an observation, but it doesn't mean I don't. I care very deeply about most people, and ideally, all people, right? No matter how horrible. But getting sidetracked. So you got to play this game. So, okay, calling it out most of the time is probably not going to be good. There are some times when, yes, you do need to call it out. Like if someone's being really aggressive, you need to be like, dude, you need to stop touching me. Like this is getting fucking weird. I don't know what your deal is. Like, I don't know you. I don't know why you keep putting your hands on me, but you need to fucking stop. But most of the time, if it's just a normal gesture, talking about it actually makes you look threatened. There was a really cool example. I know I'm digressing a lot, but I'm just trying to give you more understanding. One of the best UFC fighters of all time, Georges St. Pierre, I think he was telling this story. I don't remember it exactly, but I remember most of it. He's on a safari somewhere, maybe in Africa, and he's like on a gorilla safari. So he's around gorillas. Well, this one gorilla comes up to him, comes up behind him, and then turns its back to him and kind of like does this, but it's like it's behind him, but turned its back to him. And the guide told George, he said, oh, he's doing that to signal to you that you're so little of a threat that I can turn my back to you and not be worried. Like you can't like do anything to me, right? You're so little of a threat that I'll give you my back, a very vulnerable position, and I don't care, right? And of course, physically, the gorilla is 1,000 times stronger than one of the best fighters of all time, right? So not seeming threatened is one of the signs of someone who is a bigger monkey, right? So you don't want to like respond to that person in a way that seems threatened, that you are threatened, right? But then this is a mistake that some people say is like, oh, well, you shouldn't react to people, right? This is advice that's given a lot sometimes in social situations. Like when someone's an asshole, you shouldn't react to it. No, especially the more visible it is or the more loud it is. Like if everyone hears it, it does need to be addressed, right? So if he puts his arm on you, right, you don't want to like call him out because that makes you look threatened, right? You don't want to overreact and like punch him in the face or something, right? How do you respond? Like just think about it. What would be a good way to address it? Like how do you play the game back? Well, in this case, it's very simple, right? He puts his arm on you. You could maybe give it a look, right? Like I notice it. If you watch when Tom Aspinall met John Jones, UFC fighters, just look it up. Tom Aspinall meets John Jones, and you'll see Tom Aspinall go up and he puts his arm on John Jones. And John Jones is probably a fucking psychopath. Like I'm not saying that he's a good person, but in this case, he called it correctly. He looks at Tom's arm and he grabs it and takes it off and looks at him and goes, and smiles. Now, I think he went on to explain later, he's like, Tom was trying to gauge the distance on me because Tom would do this with a lot of people. You'll see it if you see in his other fights. Before the fight, he'll walk up and do this and put his arm on someone, but he'll do it in a very friendly way. But you can tell what he's doing is he's trying to gauge distance. He wants to feel how far they are away from his full reach so that he knows how to punch and gauge his distance while he's fighting, right? And John Jones, probably a fucking psychopath, knows how monkey games are played, right? So he could see that Tom Aspinall, an otherwise really nice, jolly guy, was actually kind of being an asshole here. And I agree with John on this case. And so he grabbed his hand, took it off, and was like, right? Now, I don't think you should take it off unless he's being really aggressive and you need to really stand your ground. But you do need to act as if you either recognize it or to kind of tell him like, hey, I know what you're doing, but without being threatened. Because the way John did it, he wasn't threatened, right? He's just like, nah, don't play that game with me. So you can either look at it and then look at him and just kind of smile and then put your arm on him and be like, hey, buddy, how you doing? Right? And you do back to him what he's doing to you, even if he's bigger than you. And in fact, this can give you extra points because it's like, okay, you're the smaller person, but you're like doing it back to him. So you're showing even less fear than him, right? So who knows, you might actually be the bigger monkey. Or you can skip the part where you look at it and just like put your arm on his shoulder and be like, you can even pull him in too. You can up the ante, all right? You can put your arm on his shoulder and then pull him in and be like, hey, what's up, buddy? How are you? All good? Now, what does that all good mean, right? It's a very clever, this is actually a tool you can use to de-escalate a lot of things. When someone's like being aggressive, especially in nightlife environments, right? I've spent a lot of times in clubs, seen a lot of fights, been in a couple myself. One of the best diffusing tactics I've seen is when someone's kind of acting up, you can just be like, you good, man? You good? Oh, yeah, I'm good. Right? Now, you don't want to, if you say anything more, then you're going to start a fight. Be like, you sure, man? You kind of acting like a fool. Right? You just be like, you good, man? Yeah, I'm good. How about you? You good, bro? On a deeper level, you know what's happening, right? You kind of understand these things already, but I want you to become more aware of them so that you can start translating them and understanding them on a deeper level, on a conceptual level, right? But you know what people are doing when they say that, right? Like you get that people are like gauging each other, right? So when you like put your arm around him or even pull him in, but again, it's a risk, right? These are all risks. You pull him and be like, hey, you good, man? All good? Yeah, I'm good. Cool. And sometimes, here's the fun part. This is where things get really, really interesting. Sometimes this guy might actually turn into a friend because he'll recognize you. He might not have initially because maybe he thought you were small and he was drunk and here's this girl he likes. He might actually gain a respect for you and go, oh, okay, he's not just a little bitch. Like he's actually strong and he might actually like you after. He might respect you. I've seen this happen. So he might go, oh, wow, okay, this guy, like, you know, is not a pussy. And that respect of his, the primal respect will combine with maybe he thought you were a nice person, but he thought you were a pussy. But, oh, now I respect him and he's a nice person. Okay, I actually like this guy. And I've seen people totally change their demeanor, right? Because, again, we're not just monkeys, obviously, right? Because if it was just monkeys, he would either get threatened and then escalate, or he would feel dominated and then he would deflate. But those are not the only two options. There is the third option because we're human beings and we have a lot more to us than just being monkeys. You know, we can bridge, we can build bridges despite our primal urges, right? I had this happen. I was at a club, you know, most times I've had problems with other guys tend to be in environments where people are drinking and competing for sex, right? Who would have thought? I remember I was at this club with my fraternity brothers. We were going to a fraternity conference, and we decided to go out one of the nights. And I saw this girl, very cute girl. She was walking like over there, and she fell. And as she fell, she kind of like was facing my direction, and I kind of, you know, gestured to her. I was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she was like, "Oh, okay." And, you know, said thank you. And then this guy next to her turned and looked at me, and then his friend also looked at me. And the first guy looked at me. I don't remember. He's like, "What the fuck?" or be like, "Fuck off," or something like that. Like, he immediately reacted to it. I'm just like, dude, all I did was ask if she's okay, right? And this is actually a really great lesson in monkey games because it kind of covers the whole gambit. And so I thought that was the end of it, right? And so I go back to talking to my friends. And then I hear someone say, "You want me to stab you and throw you over the railing?" And I'm like, what? Like, I'm just like flabbergasted. And I turn, and it's the friend of the guy. Not the guy who told me to fuck off, but his friend. And he was like my height, so not super intimidating. But he had like a chain on. He was in like VIP area. He seemed very confident, you know. But it kind of came off a demeanor. He kind of came off like he had a demeanor of like a tough guy, right? And so I registered what he said and kind of paused for a moment. I was like, well, how the fuck do you even respond to that? But then I just smiled and I was like, "What's your name?" And this threw his ass off. Like if you walk up to someone and you say, "You want me to stab you and throw you over the railing?" and they respond with, "Hey man, what's your name?" You're probably going to be like, "Whoa, okay, that's not what I expected to hear," right? And it definitely threw him off. He actually started. He's like, "You don't need to know my name." Like, did not expect that response. He expected me to get fucking intimidated, right? Monkey games. For whatever reason, I don't like you. I want to kill you, right? "Hey man, how are you?" Now, what I said was civilized, but given the context, it actually was big balls. It's the monkey turning his back on George St. Pierre. I don't even see you as a threat. You just threatened to kill me. Cool. What's your name? Right? It's very powerful. So you can play monkey games even with simple language, depending on the context. Are you starting to... You're following. You're not dumb, right? And so after he kind of started, he's like, oh, you don't need to know my name. And I reached out my hand. I said, my name's Hector. Nice to meet you. And he kind of paused, and he looked at my hand, and then he reached out and he shook my hand. And then he told me his name. And I was like, you know, what's going on? And he's like, oh, well, you know, don't talk to my friend's girl, blah, 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 blah. Starts kind of going off. And I was like, don't even know who she is. I just saw that she fell, and I was asking if she's okay. I don't really see the problem. And then I was starting to explain calmly that his concerns and fears are overblown, but I'm not like going to apologize either, right? So you don't want to escalate. So you're like, don't you fucking dare tell me who to talk to or not, bitch. I'll fuck her in front of you. Like, you know, but then you don't want to wimp out either. Be like, oh, sorry, man, I didn't know, right? Because your monkey power, right? Your Super Saiyan power, your Dragon Ball Z radar, power level reader, is going to be visible in your body language, facial expressions, eye contact, choice of words, etc., right? Vocal tonality. Well, while we were talking, one of the waitresses comes over, and she's like, hey, what's up? How are you? Very smart, right? She's playing monkey games, but she's doing it, you know, she's using her feminine monkey skills, right? Like bringing her calming energy. She's like, oh, blah, 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 you know, hey, what's your name? Da, da, da. Oh, yeah, I'm good friends with him. And then she actually invited me over to the table, sat me down, gave me a shot, and then introduced me to everyone at the table. And then at one point, I was just sitting there chilling, and the waitress, like, I don't know, was talking to me, and I was just like, okay, this is kind of weird. Like, why am I sitting here? And then the guy who initially threatened to, like, stab me just looked at me, and he's like, you know what? You're cool. And I'm like, cool. And we just started chatting, and then I talked to the guy who I found out was the boyfriend of the girl who had fell. He was the one who initially said, hey, fuck you, or whatever. And I hung out with him all night. And I went on to find out that they were having problems. They were going through a lot of drama, and they were getting close to breaking up. And so the boyfriend was very on edge and getting very defensive and territorial. Monkey games, right? His pussy is being threatened. And then, you know, he saw his girlfriend, you know, give eye contact to another guy and got threatened by it. And da-da-da. And so monkey games were played, and, you know, they were transformed into something more than just monkey, right? But you can't win the game unless you know how to speak monkey and act monkey. So I guess the lesson I'm trying to get to you is that you got to learn how to speak monkey language, and you got to learn how to play monkey games if you want to go above them. Because if you try to cheat your way to, like, okay, you know, I don't want to play these dumb games of power. I want to have nice relationships with everyone and blah, 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 blah. That's like saying I want to be a millionaire before, you know, and I don't want to have to, like, slave away every day and blah, blah, blah. I want to, you know, have an, you know, interesting life where we all take care of each other and blah, blah, blah. You can't really do that. You got to put in the work first, and then you can change the game once you can put in the work, and you can manipulate it. And then what you realize is that no matter how much you try to get away from it, if you want to interact with others, you have to play the monkey game. There will still always be dominance battles going on. No matter what, no matter how enlightened you think you are and the other person is, like, there still must be monkey games being played. Games of position and authority and status. And they happen with not just women, but with other men, with friends, and with family. Okay? But they very much apply to women because, like I said, the end result of sex is a very animalistic act. So what causes women to be attracted to you is very primal. But clearly, like I said, by the fact that it's not just 6'5", behemoths that are the only ones succeeding sexually in the world, clearly we have other means to attract women. But even though we're using civilized means, those civilized means, like conversation and getting to know each other, still has an undercurrent of primality within it. So when you're talking to a girl on a date and you are, on one level having a conversation about what she does for work or what you do for work or where you traveled and da-da-da, but then you reach over and you touch her on the leg. You're having one conversation, but by touching her on the leg, you're having a different conversation. You are showing your intent. You're showing your sexual interest by connecting with her on this physical level. Because, you're eventually going to want to be touching inside of her. So you start small and you work your way up. But this is your first attempt to kind of, get more intimate. And then she's either going to accept it or reject it. But it is still a level, or it still is a game of, to what level am I going to allow him to be on me? Because eventually, most times it's the guy who's escalating, right? And who takes off her clothes and makes the move, right? So it is somewhat of a, okay, I'm going to let you do this to me. So it's a dominance battle, right? But it's a dominance battle that she kind of wants to lose, right? So you need to learn how to play the game on the human level, but also the monkey level. The touching, the not seeming intimidated by her. Because a 6'5" behemoth strongman, but then he talks to a girl that he really likes and he gets really nervous. In her mind, he's a little puppy dog. She doesn't see him as a big strong man. She sees him as a little weak man. But some guy who's 5'8" and, looks like a girl, but he's very confident and calm around her, and he's expresses himself sexually, and he doesn't seem restrained except by, her comfort levels, whether she likes it or not, but he doesn't seem nervous about the fact that he's sexually interested in her, and expresses it by, trying to touch her or trying to kiss her or trying to invite her home. He seems like more of a man than the big 6'5" guy. So to her, he's actually the big monkey. And then eventually she's attracted to it enough, and she bends over and allows him to come inside of her. Does that make sense? All right. So this lesson extends much farther than you would initially think. But it's a very powerful lesson, and it's one that you have to learn. I denied it for a long time. I tried my best. I was like, oh, we know we can be better. But I saw myself operating on primal levels, and I didn't like it. And so I tried to ignore that side of myself. But then I eventually accepted it. I was like, okay, I am going to operate on these levels. I should restrain them, but I'm going to be governed by them to a certain extent. Because as long as I like fucking pussy, I am somewhat, enslaved to this monkeyness, right? But that's the game you're playing. So if you're going to play the game and you want to succeed, then you got to fucking learn how to play it. That's it. That's my lesson to you. The question you have to ask yourself is, how much of my life is actually monkey games, right? And man, this applies in ways that you might not have even ever thought. Like, that guy gets the promotion not because he's the better programmer, but because the monkey who is in charge of hiring him feels better around him. Oh, this monkey make me feel good with his funny words. I want monkey around me more. And then he gets hired into a better position. Your parents might talk to you in a certain way because to them, they remember wiping your ass, right? And so to them, you're just like you're a little baby monkey for all your life. But unfortunately, sometimes this causes them to be a little bit rude to you, maybe, or tell you what to do. And you want to tell them, hey, you know what? I'm a big monkey now, right? I'm not shitting my pants. You know, I'm an adult. I'm a man, or I'm a woman, whatever. And, you know, I want to be taken seriously. And I don't like when you tell me what to do as if I don't know what to do with my life. Well, if you want to really get that point across to them, you're going to have to say it with some authority, say it with some conviction, say it in a way where they respect you as an adult monkey, not just a baby monkey. And that is going to be expressed through body language, vocal tonality, eye contact, your choice of words, of course, right? There's an intellectual part, but a lot of it is non-intellectual. So professional life, family life, romantic life, friendships, these monkey games are being played everywhere at all levels of society. There's always some level of dominance battle going on between men and men and women and women and men and women. Everywhere, always, all the time, pretty much. And you need to learn how to play it. But in order to play it, you have to understand it. So start looking around at the world around you and don't get mad at it. Don't get upset with it. Just go, okay, to what extent is what we got going on right now a monkey game? And who's winning? Because if you get really good at it, you can make everyone win to a certain extent, right? But if there's a monkey in the room and he's aware of all the monkey games going on and he's very good at, not putting anyone down, right? But also not letting himself get put down and doing his best to make everyone, have a good time and be happy and da-da-da. He's probably top monkey. But he's not just a monkey. He's a man, right? He's being guided by principles that are obviously much bigger than just, who's the most powerful. But the only way he can really succeed in his mission is by being the most powerful. So take that and run with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. It's something that I talk about a lot with my clients, but I've never actually formally made a video out of it. So I did it now. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to learn more about this, then obviously monkey can't see that well without mirror in front of eyes. Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about this, free, feel free. I always fucking stutter at the end of videos. God damn it. Feel free to sign up for a coaching consultation. Link in the description. I think I'll be open to taking a couple more clients. My schedule's almost full, but I could probably take 2 to 3 more clients. That's at me, releasing this video. If you watch this, obviously later, I might have a more free schedule or a less free schedule. Who knows? I'll maybe be totally booked. But yeah, I could take on a couple more clients for the next 6 months. So if you're interested, I would definitely sign up now for a consultation. Link in the description. I have a texting book you might be interested in. It kind of actually breaks down a lot of these monkey games. I don't call it that in the book. This terminology, monkey games, I've only had for a couple years now. But I do basically break down texting on the level of monkey games, but then also, communication. And then I have a day game course, which teaches you how to meet girls pretty much everywhere. And the course is called Meet Girls Everywhere. Go figure. So that's a very good resource if you want to just start, getting more girls in your life and actually starting the process. It's the best way to meet girls. So yeah, check those things out, and hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you very soon. Ciao. Love you.